Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top. Amar V'Yiram Shmuel Kaychav Echad Yom. If you see only one star in the sky, it's still considered daytime. If that's all that you can see, not more than one, that's daytime. Shnayim Ben Hashmashos. You see 2 stars already, that's Ben Hashmashos. Shleisha, 3 stars, Lila. That's considered to be Lila, nighttime. That's definitely night. 1 star is day. Shnayim Ben Hashmashos. 2 is Ben Hashmashos. Shleisha, Lila. When we talk about the stars, we're not talking about the big stars that you can see even in the daytime, because that's not a siman for Ben Hashmashos or Lila. That's certainly daytime. We're not talking about very small stars that you can only see at night, because those stars, that's nighttime. We're talking about middle-sized stars. Middle-sized stars, so if it's 1, then it's still daytime. 2, it's Ben Hashmashos. 3, it's nighttime. If a person does malacha 2 consecutive Ben Hashmashos, meaning that it's Ben Hashmashos Friday into Shabbos, and Ben Hashmashos Shabbos into Motzei Shabbos. So therefore, Chayav Chatas. Even though Ben Hashmashos is a Safek, but here he'd be Chayav Chatas. He was Vadai over a Deraisa and did a Malacha, and he's Chayav Chatas. Because of a Manashach. Because whatever Ben Hashmashos is, if Ben Hashmashos is daytime, and therefore he did not do the Malacha on Erev Shabbos into Shabbos, but then it's considered daytime, he did the Malacha on Shabbos, it's not Motzei Shabbos, it's Shabbos. If Ben Hashmashos is nighttime, then he did the Malacha on Friday night. He didn't do the Malacha on Motzei Shabbos. It's already at the end of the day of Shabbos. That would have already been Motzei Shabbos, but he did the Malacha on Friday night. So Mamanashach, he did a Malacha one at a time. If he did a Malacha on 2 Ben Hashmashos, and one of them he did a Malacha, he's Chayav Chatas. And the Rashi points out, we had 3 Sveikas by Ben Hashmashos. We had a Safek, is it day, is it night, or is it part day and part night? So therefore, when we're saying this, we must be saying that he did a Malacha throughout the entire period of the Ben Hashmashos. Because if he only did it on one part, and on the other Ben Hashmashos, he did it on another, he did also on one part, perhaps on the Friday, it was still daytime. And perhaps on the Shabbos part of it, it was already Motzei Shabbos, nighttime. So Rashi says we're talking where it was done throughout the period of the Ben Hashmashos, or alternatively, one could say that he did it at the same time of the Ben Hashmashos. It not necessarily has to be the entire duration of the Ben Hashmashos, but he did the Malacha the same time Friday night, and the same time on Motzei Shabbos, he did the Malacha at the same time. So whatever the Ben Hashmashos is, Mamanashach, one of them would have been Shabbos. So he's Chayav Chatas. Amarle Rava L'Shama, Rava said to his Shamas, awesome Deloikim Lochu B'Shur the Rabbanan. You who are not familiar with these Shumar Rabbanan. So how do you know, how do you determine when Ben Hashmashos is? Adashimsha Areish Dikla, when the sun is on top of the treetops of the palm trees, Aslu Shragan. Then light the Shabbos candles. Then you know it's daytime and it's coming close to the end of the day, and light the Shabbos light. What is the siman on a cloudy day? B'masa, in the city, go and look at the roosters where they're perching. They perch on the rooftops. So that's the end of the day. B'davra, in the fields, Orbi, where the ravens, where they're now scattered on the fields. Iname Adane. Iname Adani, there's a type of a vegetable, or she says it's a type of a grass, or it's a type of a gourd, that it sways, it tilts towards where the sun is. In the morning, it tilts to the east, towards the sun. In the midday, it's straight in the sky. To the west, it tilts to the west, and at the end of the day, the stem is almost all the way down to the ground. When you see that it's tilting down to the west, then you know it's the end of the day, and it's time to light the candles. So these are the shiurim of Ben Hashmashos. We have Rav Yehuda Shita, we have Rav Yossi Shita. Now, Lamaisa, we know that there's a huge discrepancy in the shiurim of Ben Hashmashos. And where does this come from? It ranges from 13 and a half minutes to 90, 96 minutes. Where is all this shiurim, the different discrepancy of the shiurim of Bein Hashmashos, where do they come from? Now, basically, we paskin like Rav Yehuda. If we paskin like Rav Yehuda, then we should say that it's roughly 13 and a half minutes after Shkia. However, there are several issues. One issue is how to calculate a mil. What is the distance of a mil? So we paskin, if we say like Rabbah says, that Rav Yehuda says it's the time it takes 3/4 of a mil. Well, what is the distance of a mil? A mil, the walk, some shitas hold that it's the time it takes, it's 18 minutes. 18 minutes is the time it takes to walk a mil. Some say 22 and a half, and some say 24. So that's one area of discrepancy. The other area of discrepancy is that Rav Yehuda in Psachim says the time it takes to walk 4 milim. Rav Yehuda himself says it's the time it takes to walk 4 milim. Now here, Rabbah and Rav Yosef argues that 3/4 of a mil or 2/3 of a mil, but Rav Yehuda himself says 4 milim. Now, according to many Rishonim, that was an initial shita of Rav Yehuda, but we paskin like we say over here in Masechet Shabbos, it's 3/4 to 2/3. That is what some of the Rishonim hold. Rabbeinu Tam, the famous shita of Rabbeinu Tam, he holds that no, and that we say that really legabe, this din over here, this gabe, the din that we're talking about, of when Bein Hashmashos is 4 milim. The time is 4 milim. This is the time of the entire Bein Hashmashos. The period of 2/3 or 3/4 of a mil is just discussing the latter component, the latter piece. When we calculate seis, is it the time of seis kachavim? He's talking about this latter component of the Bein Hashmashos. So if it's a period of 4 milim, and that's where Rabbeinu Tam paskins, so it's 4 milim. If a mil is the time it takes to walk 18 minutes, so that's 72 minutes. That's the famous 72 minutes of Rabbeinu Tam, 72 minutes after Shkia. If the time it takes to walk a mil is 22 and a half minutes, so we have 90 minutes. If it's 24 minutes, 96 minutes after Shkia. So those are the shitas of Rabbeinu Tam. Others hold that we paskin, it would be 13 and a half minutes after Shkia, but however, as the Goyen says, that's only in Eretz Yisrael. In other places of the world, the sunset is a period of Bein Hashmashos, and the time that it takes for Tzeis Kachavim, that duration between the sunset and the Tzeis is a longer period of time. And that's why in Chutz La'aretz, L'maisa, we do not hold of 13 and a half minutes. It's a much longer time, and there are different shitas and different shitas of what the Bein Hashmashos in Chutz La'aretz is, and it varies from place to place where it goes. But that's why we have this discrepancy, because there's the factor of, do we paskin 4 milim or 3/4 of a mil? What is the duration of a mil? And it also depends if you're in Eretz Yisrael or if you're in Chutz La'aretz, and where in Chutz La'aretz you might be. Tana Rabbanan, Sheish Tekiyah Takim Erev Shabbos. There used to be Tekiyah Erev Shabbos, so that people should know that they have to stop doing Malacha and Shabbos is coming. They did 6 tekiyas. Rishayna, the first one is a simen, havteles amim malach shibasadas. The first is that the people in the fields, they should stop doing their malacha. Shniel havtel ir v'chanuyas. The second one is the people working in the city. They're closer by, so they don't need as much time. So the second one is for the people working in the city and the shops. That's when they have to stop and close up their shops and now come home. Shlishi is lahalik sneh. The third one is a siman to light the candles. Divrei Rav Nosson. That's what Rav Nosson says. Rabbi Yehuda Nossi Omer Shlishi is lachlis tefillin. He says the third one is to remove the tefillin. They used to wear tefillin the entire day, but you can't wear the tefillin at night, and you can't wear it at Shabbos. So then at the end of the day, that's the siman. Shabbos is coming. Remove the tefillin. Vishoye kedei is not cotton, and then there's a pause. Enough time it takes to roast a small fish, or to stick the dough into a tanner. That's the way they used to bake the breads, by sticking it to the sides of the tanner. Then v'tekeya Marie v'tekeya b'shavis. He does a tekiya, a true tekiya, and now it's Shabbos. Amr Shimon Gamliel, man nasel hem lebavliyim. What should we do for the bavliyim? Should take Mariam v'shayfsim yitoch Mariam. What should we do with them? They don't follow this practice. They do a tekiya, a trua, and then they stop after the trua. What do you mean? How could that be? It says that there are sheish tekiyas, and there's 6. And if they stop after the Shaivas and it's already Shabbos after the Trua, they only have 5. It's the first 3, the Sodis, the Chunuz, etc. And then you have only Tekiya and Trua, it's only 5. Ella, no, what he means is, Shetaikim v'chayzim v'taikim Miriam. Now they had 6. They had the first 3 for the people in the fields, and the people in the stores, and the lighting the candles, or the tefillin. And then, instead of doing Tekiya, Trua, Tekiya, they did Tekiya, then Tekiya, Trua. So they had 6, but they had a different order. They didn't do Tekiya, Trua, Tekiya, they did Tekiya, Tekiya, Trua. V'shayis mitoich Miriam. So what should we do about them? So the answer, minig of Hashem b'yadeim. That's their minig. That's their minig of Hashem. They're not doing it improperly. They're following the minig of Hashem. Masal he taught his son of Yitzchak Shniya l'halag esaner. He said the second one is for the lighting of the candles. More, come on. Second one, like Rav Nosson, like Rav Yehuda Nossi. It's like neither of them. Neither of them say that it's the second one is for the lighting of the ner. Ella shlishis l'halag esaner. It's the third one that is for the lighting of the candle. Come on, Rav Nosson, and that is like Rav Nosson. Because that's Rav Nosson, he says that it is on the third one. Now Rav Yehuda says the third one is to remove the tefillin. So Rav Yehuda holds that it's the fourth one that's for hadlakas in there. So he said, taught to him that it's the third one, which is like Rav Nosson. Tana de Rav Yishmael sheish tekiyas taikim erev Shabbos. With Tekiya, so as we discussed before, now we're discussing in more detail. The first Tekiya, then so the people who are in the fields, they stopped doing their digging in the fields, and stopped their plowing, and any other malacha that will be done in the fields. Now the people had fields that were closer to the city. They had to stop what they're doing, but they weren't allowed to come into the city yet. Until the ones who were in the fields further away, that they came and they all entered the city together. Right? So they didn't want to appear that some people who were in the fields are coming in, and then people are coming later. It might give an appearance that the people who were coming later were continuing to do the work in the fields after the Tekiya. So therefore they waited, so that it should not be any kind of chashad on the people who were coming later. They all stopped at the same time. The ones who were closer to the city waited. They waited for the people who were in the fields further away, and they all entered the city together. But the people who worked in the city and the shops, the shops were still able to be open, and their trisim, the shutters. The way they used to do it in those days is they had their stores. They had shutters that closed up the store. When they opened the store, they removed the shutters and they used it as tables and to display their goods. And that's what they sold. They displayed their wares, and they sold it from these shutters that were used as tabletops. When they were closed up, then they took the shutters, they took the tables, they took these shutters, and they closed up the stores. So, Vadayin, by the first Tekiya, the Chainu was Psuchos, the Trisim Munochim, and the Trisim where the tabletops were set up. When they had the second Tekiya, and the Stalko had Trisim B'nanu Lachanis. So they removed the tabletops, they closed up the stores, locked it up with the shutters. So now the people in the field stopped working. The stores were closed up, but still, you still had the hot food on the stove. And the pots were still on the stove. Then they started the third Tekiya, so therefore they removed things from the pot, and they insulated. There were times when it had to be insulated, but they didn't do any cooking. So they removed things from the pots from the stoves rather. They were matman. They insulated what were able to insulate. That was sheina ma'asav hevel. They did their hatmana there. V'hidlik hamadlik, and they lit the candles. V'shayeh k'dei sliyas da cotton, and they paused the time it takes to roast the fish, or k'dei l'hadik pas betoner, or to put the dough in the tanner, v'tekeya umiri v'tekeya v'shavis, and then it tkiya, shu tkiya, and then it was Shabbos. So that's what they did on that, and that's the seder of what they did. They, Rosh and other Rishonim bring a raya that you see that after Hadlakas Neiros, you see that you can still do Malach. Because it says, Yeshayah Kedei Tzli Dad Kotan, like Kedei Lahad B'Pavtaner, which means that after they did the Hidlik Hamadlik, you're still able to do that. You're still able to do that and do this kind of Malacha. So you see that even after the lighting of the candles, you can still do Malacha. Now they say that after by Marev already, by Baruch Hu, you cannot. But after the lighting of the candles, you can. The Ran is Deicha this Raya. The Ran is Deicha this Raya because he says, no, the people who lit the candles were not able to do it. It's only the one who was Tekeya. The one who was Tekeya, he paused, and then he did the final Tekiya, Trua Tekiya. Then he did the final Tekiya, Trua for those who did not light candles, were not lighting candles, but it's only the Tekeya that paused. But he said the ones who lit the candles were not allowed to do Malachim. So that's the Machlekes Rishonim, but everybody agrees that by the time of Maariv already, it cannot do any Malach, but certainly after the time when it's Shkia, certainly one cannot do the Malach. Omer of Yosef of Chanina Shemati Shim Bod Lahadagach Sheish Tkiya is Madlik. Shrei Nosu Chom Shir L'Chazon Knesses LaHoylech Shefer LeBeisai. So he says, even after the 6-1, that there still is time to light the candles, because the one who does the Tekiya, he was Tekiya, well, after he finishes, he has to bring his shayfer and he has to bring it home. So you see that, well, if he can bring it home, that must mean that you're still allowed to do a malach over here. Omer Loyim Kana says as Rach Lishur, he said, no, he's not allowed to do a malach, he's not allowed to bring it home. Because no, he says they had to put it away, and they had a place hidden. They used to be tekeh on the rooftops. That's where they were tekeh on the rooftops, so that it could be heard all over. On the rooftop, they had a place hidden that they could hide away the shayfer. But you can't say that he can bring it home. One tekeh could live close by, one further away. How can you say that he can bring it home? One person, he lives close, the other one very far away. And how can he bring it home if he lives far away? Now, such as directly shiurim. Do you have a minute after the 6th kiyah? Do you have 10 minutes? So therefore, he had to leave it on the rooftop. Because you cannot be metalton, not a shayfer and not a chatzraises, because they're considered muksa, which the Gemara will discuss this coming up shortly.